If you had asked me a few months ago whether a simple Sunday dinner could blow up my entire life, I would have said you were exaggerating. I'm a guy who deals with machinery the size of small buildings. I handle gear that can tear concrete in half. Compared to that, family dinner should have been nothing. But I was wrong. My name's Luke. 32. Born and raised in Pittsburgh. I rebuild heavy equipment excavators. Loaders. Machines with enough hydraulic pressure to lift your car like it's a plastic toy. People think the work is rough, but I like it. Machines don't pretend. When something's worn out, it shows. When a component is failing, there's a noise, a vibration, a temperature spike. You catch the signs. You fix the issue, and the machine goes back to doing what it was built to do. Human beings don't come with warning lights. I learned that late. Outside of work, I keep my routines simple. Twice a week, I'm at Clove's Gym on the South Side. An old-school boxing place where the smell of leather and sweat is practically soaked into the walls. Coach Clove isn't much for words. He'll grunt in Russian, tap your shoulder with his walking stick, and you immediately know what you did wrong. It's satisfying in a strange way, someone pointing out exactly how to be better. And when I'm not boxing, I'm in my garage. That's where the Challenger sits, a 1973 Dodge I dragged out of a field in Washington County. When I first found it, it looked like nature was halfway through reclaiming it. Rust on the fenders, cracked windshield, interior falling apart, but the frame was solid, and the original 340 engine was still there, hidden under grime but breathing. That car became my long-term project, something I could bring back piece by piece, a kind of therapy. Then there was Fiona. We met through a mutual acquaintance 3 years ago. She sold real estate, always had perfect nails, perfect hair, the newest phone, the newest outfit. She carried herself like someone who expected the world to open doors for her, and most of the time, it did. She had energy, confidence, charm, the kind of presence that fills a room. At first, I found that exciting. I thought we balanced each other, her outgoing nature, my steadiness. For a while, it worked. She liked that I was grounded. I liked that she pushed me to be more social. She'd tease me for spending weekends in the garage, and I'd tease her for ordering cocktails that cost more than my lunch for the entire week. We had differences, but I thought that made things interesting. So after 3 years, I proposed. I bought the ring only after months of overtime and budgeting. White gold. Modest diamond. Nothing flashy, but something real. When I slipped it on her finger, she cried and hugged me like I was the best decision she'd ever made. I believed that moment. I believed her. We agreed very clearly to split wedding expenses evenly. She even said it in a text. Makes sense. We're both adults with jobs. That was in February. I remember saving the message without knowing why. Maybe habit. Because in my line of work, you document everything. It didn't take long for the first cracks to appear. The venue deposit was $2,800. I paid, sent her the receipt, and asked for her half. She sent $1,400 3 weeks later with some excuse about a delayed commission. It sounded reasonable. Real estate income fluctuates. Right. Then came the caterer deposit, $2,200. Same cycle. I paid. She sent part of her half, promised the rest. Never sent it. Meanwhile, she was posting weekend trips. Dinners at places where a salad costs $30. Spas, shopping hauls, concerts. Somehow, she always had money for all of that, but not the wedding we were supposedly planning together. I noticed, but I didn't want to fight. I just added the receipts to a folder and moved on. Over time, the planning turned into something else entirely. Fiona treated the wedding like it was a national event. Pinterest boards, color-coded spreadsheets, vendor lists, a binder so thick it could stop small-caliber bullets. Every detail mattered to her napkin colors, font styles, share cover, exotic flower arrangements. She spoke about them like they were decisions that would shape the rest of humanity. I paid the bills. She added things to the vision. Then she started talking about upgrades. The venue wasn't grand enough. The guest list wasn't large enough. The honeymoon wasn't luxurious enough. People will talk if we cut corners. She said, we should do this right. When I reminded her that doing this right was already expensive, she suggested I pick up more overtime, then casually added that I could sell the Challenger, just like that, sell the car I'd poured years of work into. I told her no. She rolled her eyes and muttered something about priorities. I thought it was just a rough week. I should have known it was the beginning of something bigger. A few days later, she told me, didn't ask, didn't check my schedule, that we were expected at her parents' house for Sunday dinner. Her mom wanted to finalize details. I said I'd come after finishing some suspension work on the Challenger. She sighed loudly. Like I'd told her I was skipping our wedding to watch paint dry. You always put that car first. She said, maybe if you didn't waste time on it, we wouldn't be so stressed about money. That one stung. But I kept my voice calm. Precision work can't be rushed. She didn't want to hear it. Sunday came. I scrubbed the grease off, changed clothes, and arrived exactly at 3. Her dad was working the grill. Her mom was running the kitchen like a military operation. Her sister Janet and Janet's husband were already there. At first, everything looked normal. Small talk. Weather. Work. Fiona glued to her phone. Then Janet asked about our honeymoon plans. That question flipped a switch in Fiona. She started describing luxury packages and first-class flights plans we had never discussed. Then she shifted into a speech about how some people weren't contributing equally and how it was holding the relationship back. Her eyes stayed on me the entire time. I felt the tension before I understood it. Her mom's tight smile. Janet's awkward chuckle. Her dad pausing mid-turn at the grill. It felt rehearsed. Then she started listing everything. She resented my car, my job, my rented house, my routine, even my friends. She said she'd been settling, hoping I'd grow up. Every word was sharp and practiced. And then she said his name, Kevin. Suddenly, I wasn't her fiancé. I was the man she used as a placeholder. She said Kevin had ambition, that he took her to places that mattered, that he made her feel things I apparently couldn't. Her family didn't react with surprise. They already knew. Finally, she ripped the ring off her finger and threw it at me. It hit my chest and skittered across the hardwood. It's cheap, she said. Just like this relationship, Kevin would never give me something like that. Then she finished with the line that would repeat itself in my head for days. I'll forget you in a week. Honestly, I'm already halfway there. Something inside me stopped moving. Not broken, just key it. I walked over, picked up the ring, slipped it into my pocket, removed her spare key from my keychain, and handed it to her dad. Thanks for dinner, I said. Then I walked out, took out my phone, and sent a single text to Ray. Implemented. By the time I reached the end of the driveway, his truck was already pulling up to the curb. Ray didn't ask questions when I got into his truck. He just glanced over, saw my expression, and nodded like he'd expected this outcome for months. That's the thing about your closest friends, they notice everything. Even the things you think you're hiding. That bad? He asked quietly. Worse, I said, but it's done. He didn't push. We drove in silence. The kind that's not uncomfortable, just heavy. By the time we reached my place, my phone had already buzzed 7 times. I didn't look at the messages. I wasn't ready for whatever storm Fiona had launched the moment I walked out. Instead, I walked straight to my front door and did the first thing on the list. Ray and I had drafted weeks earlier, change the locks. We'd talked about this scenario not because I expected Fiona to explode at a family dinner, but because Ray knows people, human patterns, escalation cycles. After his divorce, he became the type who documents everything, secures everything, prepares for every possible angle. He told me, memories fade. Screenshots don't. He was right. So we worked systematically. 45 minutes later, the old deadbolt and handle were in a cardboard box, and a brand new Grade 1 assembly was on my door. Solid enough to withstand a battering ram. Ray had picked it out himself. When it was done, we sat on my porch for a moment, the late afternoon sunlight cutting across the driveway. You want to check your phone now? Or you want a buffer? He asked. Buffer, I said. We went inside. I started a pot of coffee even though I didn't really need the caffeine. Habit. I guess something normal in a day that had turned surreal. Eventually, I picked up my phone. 8 then texts. 11 missed calls. All from Fiona. The first messages were sugary apologies. The kind that try to rewrite history in real time. I didn't mean it like that. You're overreacting. We just need to talk. I was stressed. My family pressured me. Then the tone shifted. You walked out on me. You're overreacting. We just need to talk. You walked out on me. Then came the threats disguised as warnings. I'm coming over. You can't lock me out of our life. I screenshotted every single message. Then I blocked her number. That night, I sat with Ray at my kitchen table and started the audit our name for the full breakdown of finances, subscriptions, accounts, and wedding expenses. If this was going to end, it wouldn't end in chaos. It would end with documentation, clarity, and control. Joint checking $3. 847. 32. Joint savings $1. 223. 18. Shared subscriptions Netflix, Spotify, gym membership, wedding vendor payments all filed, all timestamp, all linked to my accounts. Everything I paid, I logged. Everything she owed, I noted. The more I wrote, the more the situation shifted from emotional shock to something else, focused determination. Machines taught me something important. If you make decisions while things are overheating, you cause more damage. You cool down first. You diagnose second. Then you act. That night, I slept without dreaming. The kind of deep, heavy sleep that comes after a long shift or a long fight. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm, got dressed, and went to work like it was any other Monday. Rebuilding the injector pump on a 2019 Caterpillar felt grounding. Machines don't care if your relationship just exploded. They demand attention, precision, patience. And when you give them that, they respond. During lunch, I went to HR and updated my emergency contacts, took Fiona off everything, added Ray as primary, and my brother as backup. It felt oddly symbolic, like removing her from the small corners of my life she'd quietly taken over. That night, I started organizing Fiona's belongings. Ray showed up with storage bins and his label maker like it was second nature. We went room to room. Clothes, books, a couple toiletries. An ugly throw pillow, she insisted, belonged on my couch and never matched anything. It all fit into 2 boxes. 2 boxes for 3 years. When we were done, Ray looked around the living room and asked, "Feels different, doesn't it?" "Yeah," I said. "Lighter." He stayed until midnight, helping me organize the folders for wedding cancellations and refund policies. He built a spreadsheet so neat and color-coded it belonged in a museum for accountants. Refund deadlines in red. Vendors highlighted by urgency. Estimated return amounts. By the time he left, I had a plan. Tuesday morning, I began the cancellations. I called the venue first, referencing the contract section number like a lawyer. They processed the cancellation and confirmed I'd get my deposit back minus a fee. Then the caterer 60% refund because I was within the window, the DJ, the photographer. Every vendor had policies, and I followed each to the letter. By noon, thousands of dollars were already scheduled to be refunded to my account. It felt like pulling myself out of quicksand. Later that week, I took the engagement ring to a jeweler for appraisal. The man examined it under bright lights, checked the stone, checked the setting, nodded approvingly, and offered a fair buyback price. Not what I had originally paid, but enough. When he handed me the check, I felt something loosen in my chest. I walked out of that shop feeling free. Then came the final step, filing the small claims case. I printed every receipt, every message, every agreement. I highlighted Fiona's text from February where she agreed to split costs 50-50. Ray came over again to help assemble the evidence packet. He organized everything with tabs and dividers, like he was preparing for a corporate audit. On Friday morning, I filed the case downtown. The clerk stamped the paperwork, handed me the case number, and told me Fiona had 30 days to respond once served. By Sunday, exactly 1 week after that disastrous dinner, I had everything under control. My house was secured. My finances were organized. Refunds were processing. Legal steps were underway. Fiona's belongings were blocked. Her number was blocked. I didn't feel triumphant or bitter. I just felt steady, clear. That night, I put my phone in a drawer and went back to the garage. The Challenger was waiting. Stripped down. Wires hanging. Parts laid out neatly on shelves. Working on that car felt like breathing again. While the wrenches clicked and the engine bay started to look less like chaos and more like order, I realized something. People aren't machines. They can hide damage. They can lie about failing parts. They can pretend everything's fine right until the moment everything collapses. But I wasn't collapsed. I wasn't broken. I was rebuilding. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I finally had control of my own life again. I was rebuilding. By the time the second week rolled around, the adrenaline of the breakup had settled into something colder, steadier. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was busy. And being busy kept me sane. But Fiona didn't take silence well. Not at all. The first strange number texted me on Thursday evening. "You're being dramatic. Just talk to me." Blocked. Then a number from Philadelphia. "So now you're ignoring me after everything." Blocked. Then one from Ohio. "My family says you're acting childish. I can't believe you're doing this." Blocked. Every single message went straight to my screenshot folder before I blocked the number. Ray told me to save everything. Patterns matter, he said. Judges like patterns. And the pattern was obvious. The more distance I put between us, the more desperate she became. I didn't respond to any of it. Not once. Around that same time, word started trickling back to me from mutual acquaintances. Apparently, Fiona was telling everyone a very different story than the one she lived. According to her, I abandoned her at a family dinner. I stole back the engagement ring. I backed out of the wedding without telling her. I refused to pay my share of costs we had agreed on. She conveniently left out cheating. She left out the public insults. She left out the ring she threw at my chest. She left out Kevin entirely. People who didn't know the full story sent me long, concerned messages. I replied to none of them. I didn't need sympathy, advice, or explanations. I needed peace, and I had that. Until Wednesday evening, I was leaving the company yard after finishing work on a fuel system when our security guard waved me down. "Hey, man," he said. Someone was looking for you." My stomach tightened. "Who?" "A woman. Said she was your fiancée." "She's not." I figured. He scratched his beard. "She tried to walk onto the property when she saw your truck. Said there was a family emergency and she needed access to your vehicle." I exhaled slowly. She already picked up her stuff last week. "Well, she tried to get in. I told her no. Company policy. She didn't like that and left. But I figured you'd want to know." I thanked him, went straight home, and added the incident to my log in neat handwriting. October 25th, 5:48 p.m. Attempted workplace contact. False claim of emergency. Denied entry by security. That night, I called the non-emergency police line, not because I wanted her in trouble, but because I wanted documentation from a third party. I explained the situation, provided the workplace incident number, and asked to add it to my existing case file. The officer I spoke with was calm and professional. He said something that stuck with me. "Documentation is your best friend here. Keep logging everything. If anything escalates, you'll be glad you did." And unfortunately, things did escalate. A mutual friend reached out a few days later with information that made my stomach turn. Kevin, the man Fiona had praised while tearing me down, was married. Not just married. He had a wife who had discovered everything. She had found screenshots, messages, private photos, travel, confirmations, hotel reservations, 8 months' worth of lies. 8 months of Fiona pretending to be my future wife while secretly building a new life somewhere else. The friend told me that Kevin's wife had called Fiona's real estate office after discovering the truth. That she confronted Kevin, that he'd admitted the affair but claimed it wasn't serious enough to leave his marriage over. Translation, Fiona wasn't worth ruining his life for, which meant Fiona had lost both of us within days of each other. It explained the texts, the surveillance, the sudden desperation. Her backup plan had collapsed. Her ambitious man had left her hanging, and I had cut the lifeline she assumed would always be there. But still, I kept my focus. Boxing on Tuesdays and Thursdays helped more than I expected. When Coach Clove tapped my shoulder with his stick and said my guard was dropping, it was easier to think about footwork than Fiona. Easier to hit a heavy bag than deal with the weight of old memories. Working on the challenger helped even more. There's something therapeutic about restoring something that actually wants to be fixed. I stripped the interior, labeled every wire, replaced brittle clips, cleaned rusted brackets, bit by bit. The car was turning into something that looked alive again. The new motion-activated floodlight Ray had installed over my driveway also came in handy. Over the next few weeks, it triggered 4 times in the middle of the night. Each time, a silver Honda drove past slowly. Same route, same speed, same car. I logged every incident, dates, times, duration, everything. The police said to keep documenting and call immediately if she caused trouble. They didn't treat me like I was overreacting. That helped more than they knew. By mid-November, I had nearly rebuilt the car's brake lines, replaced the wiring harness, and finalized every last vendor cancellation. The small claims hearing was scheduled for early December. My life was calm again. Steady. Predictable in the way I needed it to be. Then something unexpected happened, something good for a change. The police said to keep documenting and call immediately if she caused trouble. They didn't treat me like I was overreacting. That helped more than they knew. We talked about gear ratios, weight distribution, suspension load, real conversations. Not the kind where someone nods politely while scrolling their phone. By mid-November, I had nearly rebuilt the car's brake lines, replaced the wiring harness, and finalized every last vendor cancellation. The small claims hearing was scheduled for early December. My life was calm again. Steady. Predictable in the way I needed it to be. You planned for suspension travel. Good, she said. Most people forget that. It felt good to be understood. Not admired. Not judged. Just understood. 20 minutes later, I casually mentioned the go-kart event Ray had planned for the following weekend. You're welcome to join, I said. She smiled. What kind of karts? Knowing Ray, probably faster than necessary. She let out a short laugh. All right, I'm in. That night, the motion light triggered again. Silver Honda. Slow pass. I watched it from the window and didn't feel afraid, just tired of the cycle. My life was shifting, whether Fiona liked it or not. The refunds were complete. The hearing date was set. The challenger was nearly road ready. People who appreciated me for who I was, not what I could give them, were entering my life again. For the first time in a long time, I could see forward instead of backward. And deep down, I knew something Fiona wasn't done yet. People like her rarely end things quietly. The week leading up to the go-kart event felt strangely normal. Work was steady. The challenger was coming together. And Fiona's messages, at least through unknown numbers, had slowed down, not stopped, but slowed. Enough to lull me into thinking that maybe she had finally accepted this was over. I should have known better. People don't change patterns that quickly. Especially not when their world is falling apart. Saturday arrived. Ray picked Laura and me up at 6, and we drove to the track, a professionally run place tucked behind a shopping complex. Floodlights lit the course. Engines buzzed in the distance, and there was a faint scent of rubber lingering in the air. Inside, everything was neat, organized, and louder than expected. Ray looked thrilled. Laura looked focused. I felt normal again. Like a guy out with friends instead of someone escaping a storm. We signed waivers, put on the racing suits, and got fitted for helmets. The karts were fast, real fast. Rotax engines. Responsive steering. No, nonsense. The kind of machines that punish mistakes instantly, which was fine by me. Predictable consequences were refreshing. When the countdown hit 0, the three of us shot off the starting line. Laura picked up the racing line instantly. Carving each corner like she'd studied the track layout beforehand, Ray drove like he was being chased. I fell into a rhythm breaking late, accelerating early, adjusting for the slight pull in the right front tire. The noise, the wind, the vibrations, it all felt freeing. About 15 minutes into the session, just as I was settling into my best lap, I heard something odd. Not from the cart, something outside the engine noise. Raised voices. Shouting. Angry shouting. It cut through the chaos like a blade. Fiona's voice. Even before I saw her, the sound hit me with the same cold punch as that Sunday dinner. You think you're past someone until you hear that tone again, the tone that promises trouble. I slowed, pulled into the pit lane, and shut off my cart. Ray and Laura followed. When I took my helmet off, I saw her near the entrance, arguing with a staff member. Her hair was messy, her expression frantic, and she was pointing directly at us. She followed us. Ray muttered, "How does she even know where you are?" "Pattern," I said quietly. "She's been driving past my place at night. She must have followed my truck earlier." The staff member held up both hands, trying to calm her down. She ignored him, pushed past, and marched straight toward me. "You think I don't know what you're doing," she shouted, parading around with other people like everything's fine. I didn't answer. I didn't even make eye contact. I just walked toward the equipment return area. The track manager stepped between us. "Sir, please don't engage," he said. "We're handling the disruption." But Fiona wasn't listening to anyone. She lunged toward me, grabbing for the helmet I was holding by the chin strap. I stepped away, but she grabbed again harder, and her nails caught the face shield. The helmet twisted out of my grip and slammed into the concrete floor with a crack that echoed through the pit. The staff froze. I froze. The track supervisor rushed over, inspected the damaged helmet, and turned to Fiona with a look that said he'd dealt with enough headaches for one lifetime. "Ma'am," he said, "you will be billed for the replacement. I need your ID." The staff froze. I froze. The track supervisor rushed over, inspected the damaged helmet, and turned to Fiona with a look that said he'd dealt with enough headaches for one lifetime. "And you need to leave the premises immediately." Ray crossed his arm. "Congratulations," he said dryly. "First person I've ever seen get banned from go-karting." Security escorted her out. She kept yelling all the way to the parking lot, claiming I was ruining her life, that I owed her a conversation, that I was running around with strangers. Every word made her voice crack a little more, like she was being hollowed out from the inside. Once she was gone, the manager apologized, made a note that the entire incident was recorded on the facility's cameras, and handed me a copy of the report. "We'll contact her for payment," he said. "If she doesn't comply, we have standard legal procedures." I didn't want revenge. I wanted resolution. But life doesn't hand you the resolution you want. It hands you the one that comes after the consequences pile high enough. We resumed racing after a short break, and Laura won the final heat. Ray claimed it was because he let her have it, which made her laugh harder than I'd seen all day. But the truth was, the mood had shifted. Fiona's outburst hung over the night like a storm cloud. When I got home, I added the incident report to my log. It fit too neatly into the timeline, almost like the final piece of evidence in a case that had been building for months. A few days later, the small claims hearing arrived. I showed up 10 minutes early. Binder in hand. Documents organized. Receipts printed. Screenshots labeled, "Fiona arrived 5 minutes late," carrying a thin folder that looked suspiciously like something thrown together in the car. The magistrate called our case at 9:35. He asked me to explain my claim. I walked through everything: the agreement to split costs, the receipts, the cancellations, the non-refundable portions. I referenced specific dates, contract clauses, refund windows. I kept it factual and calm. Then it was her turn. She tried to argue that I had abandoned the wedding. The judge asked if she had any documentation proving she hadn't agreed to split costs. She didn't. He asked if she disputed the amounts, She didn't. He asked if she could demonstrate that I had canceled anything early or improperly. She couldn't. The entire hearing lasted maybe 20 minutes. Judgment for the plaintiff the full amount, plus the filing fee. When we left the courtroom, she didn't look angry. She looked lost, like the version of herself she'd tried to project had collapsed. And she didn't know how to stand without it. But the judgment still got paid. So did the go-kart invoice. And after that, the surveillance stopped. The texts stopped. The drive-bys stopped. The entire hearing lasted maybe 20 minutes. In the meantime, life kept moving. The Challenger's rebuilt 340 engine roared to life the week after the hearing. The sound filled the garage, deep and steady, like something waking up from a long sleep. Ray came over with 2 beers. Laura stopped by to help install new seat covers. The 3 of us spent hours in the garage, talking about nothing important. It felt good. It felt normal. Then, 3 weeks after the hearing, the motion light triggered again. Late at night, cold air, a car door slamming shut. Laura and I both froze. It's never good when that light turns on, I said quietly. And I wasn't wrong. Fiona stepped into the beam, unsteady on her feet, wearing mismatched clothes and holding a half-finished drink. Her eyes were red, her speech slurred. "There you are," she said, pointing at me like she'd finally found something she'd been searching for. "Living your little life in this ridiculous garage." Laura set her wrench down gently. "Here we go," she murmured. Fiona staggered closer, her gaze flicking between us. When she saw Laura, her face twisted. "So that's it," she said. "You already replaced me." Laura didn't even flinch. "I'm helping him install seat covers." Fiona took a shaky step. "I came here to tell you that you're a pathetic loser." "Message received," I said. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911 calmly, clearly, like it was just another item on a checklist. When I mentioned my case number, Fiona's reaction was immediate and explosive. "You actually filed a case number on me. What kind of person does that? The kind who wants his life back." Laura said. It didn't take long for the police to arrive. 2 officers. Get composed. Professional. Fiona failed every field test they gave her. When they put the cuffs on, she cried, not angry tears, but the broken kind, the kind that come when reality finally hits harder than denial. They arrested her for trespassing and public intoxication. After the cruiser pulled away, Laura picked up her wrench again, shook her head, and said, "Well, that was dramatic." I exhaled and leaned against the Challenger. "Yeah, but maybe now it's finally over." She tightened the last bolt on the seat and patted the cushion. "Ready for a test drive?" For the first time in a long time, I said yes without hesitation. The night Fiona was arrested should have felt like the end of something. And in a way, it was. But endings aren't clean. They don't arrive wrapped neatly with a bow. Sometimes they show up in the form of swirling red and blue light, a pair of handcuffs, and a person you once planned a future with, shouting your name from the back of a police cruiser. When the driveway finally went dark again, Laura and I just stood there for a moment, listening to the Challenger's low idle rumbling through the garage. The absurdity of it all finally hit me. 3 months earlier, I'd been planning a wedding. Now I was watching the aftermath of someone's self-destruction unfold in my driveway. "Ready?" Laura asked, tossing me the keys. I nodded. We climbed into the Challenger. The fresh seat covers felt firm and clean under me. She'd helped me bolt them in earlier that night, right before everything went sideways. I turned the key, and the 340 came alive with a throaty growl that vibrated all the way through the chassis. We pulled out of the driveway and rolled down the street. The December air was cold enough that our breath fogged near the window, but the heater was warm, and the engine's warmth felt steady and reassuring. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. The car said enough. We drove around the neighborhood for 20 minutes, long enough for the weight of everything to settle, long enough to breathe again. When I dropped Laura off at her place, she gave the door a light pat. "She sounds good," she said. "You did great work." "So did you," I replied. She smiled. "If you need help with the dash wiring, let me know." I promised I would, and she disappeared inside. I sat in the driver's seat a little longer, letting the engine idle in the quiet street. The Challenger, resurrected through months of steady work, felt like a symbol of everything. I was slowly reclaiming control, clarity, peace, something built with patience instead of chaos. When I got home, the driveway was dark again, silent, empty. For the first time in months, there was no tension creeping into my shoulders as I stepped out of the car. I shut the garage door, turned off the lights, and finally slept through the night without waking up to check the window. The next morning, there were no messages, no mysterious numbers, no car driving slowly past my house. Fiona spent the night in county lockup and was released the next day with a court date. The officer who had taken the report even left me a voicemail. "Good call documenting everything," he said. "This should be straightforward." It's strange how relieving the word straightforward can sound after months of chaos. Over the following weeks, things shifted in ways I didn't expect. I wasn't suddenly happier. I wasn't suddenly healed. But the noise was gone. No more frantic texts. No more accusations. No more sudden appearances in parking lots or outside my job. I had space again. Room to breathe. The small claims judgment was finalized. And she paid. The go-kart facility sent me a confirmation that their replacement invoice had been settled as well. Even the late-night drive-bys stopped. Bit by bit, the storm quieted down until it faded completely. Sometimes silence is the loudest form of closure. With the legal mess behind me, I focused on the Challenger. Christmas came and went, and I spent most of the holidays in the garage, fitting the dash, routing, clean wiring, installing new gouges, polishing trim pieces. Every hour I spent there felt like repairing something inside myself, too. Ray came over whenever he could. He'd sit on a milk crate, drink coffee, and talk about everything except Fiona. He'd ask about boxing, work, plans for the car, anything normal. His presence made the garage feel like safer ground. Laura visited during her days off, always carrying a notebook with diagrams, torque specs, or part numbers. She never tiptoed around what happened. She just treated me like a person, not a victim. It was refreshing. One cold January morning, we were bleeding the brakes when she said, "You know, you handled everything better than most people would have." "I had good people backing me," I said. She smirked. "I'll allow that answer." By the end of the month, the car was fully roadworthy. We took it for long drives through the hills, along the river, across Kiat back roads, sunlight on the hood, engine humming beneath us. Everything steady and calm. It felt like a different life compared to where I had been. And somewhere along the way, the weight in my chest faded. I didn't miss Fiona. I didn't resent her. I didn't think about the wedding that never happened. I simply understood it, her choices, her unraveling, and the strange path that had led us both to this point. Sometimes the person you think you know is only a version they perform. Eventually, the mask slips, and you see what was underneath the entire time. The legal consequences she faced weren't my victory, they were her. The result of decisions she made long before the breakup. You can't build a stable life on deception and expect it to stand. Spring rolled in early that year. The first warm weekend, Laura and I took the Challenger out on the highway. Windows down, engine roaring like it had been waiting its entire mechanical life for this moment. She turned up the radio. The wind swept through the car, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was living a version of my life that was actually mine. Ray joked that I should put a decal on the Challenger that said, "Powered by documentation." I told him that sounded ridiculous. He threatened to print one anyway. As for Fiona, the last I heard came through a mutual acquaintance. After the arrest, her real estate office put her on leave. Kevin had gone back to his wife. Fiona moved out of her apartment and was staying with a cousin. Apparently, she was still telling some story about being betrayed. But no one was listening anymore. People tend to lose interest when the truth finally catches up. I didn't celebrate her downfall. I didn't revel in it. But I did learn something essential. You can't control who hurts you. You can control how you respond. And you can absolutely control who gets access to your life again. One evening, months after everything settled, I was in the garage polishing the Challenger's newly restored hood when Laura leaned against the doorway and asked, "So, what's next for you?" I looked at the car, then at her, and shrugged lightly. "Rebuilding," I said, "just in a different way now." She nodded. "Good answer." The garage was warm. The engine gleamed under the lights. And for once, the future didn't feel uncertain. It felt open, clear, like a road stretching out ahead of me with no detours. No wreckage. No shadows in the rear view. Funny how life works. Fiona once said she'd forget me in a week, but I'm the one who moved on, and she's the one who never really left the wreck she created. In the end, the best revenge wasn't anger, or court rulings, or showing her she was wrong. The best revenge was simple: living well, living honestly, and finally driving forward. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.